I just wanted to make mention of the fact that this is the first of a series that we're trying to organize to bring alumni of NYU in all of its schools and all of its glory in contact with you and to have a sense of what students, people who have attended NYU are doing with their career. Mostly, obviously, people who are Italian and travel to New York for school. We're also trying to do this across sites. So Serena comes to us from London, where she's very involved in NYU London. So it's a way of trying to bring the activities of each of the sites together. So you may not be here when we do our next alumni networking event, but we hope to find a way to connect people who are in our community in Italy with your curriculum. And it turns out fashion's kind of popular. So we thought we'd start with the best we had. And although anyone else who's an alumni, it's not trying to diss anyone else or any other career. But with that, I will turn it over to our faculty member, Semeghini.
Good morning, Beatrice Trussardi, James Ferragamo, and Serena Guen. They are all here to share with you their experience, both as alumni of NYU and as current important players in different fields or related to fashion and lifestyle. Of course, Beatrice Trussardi and James Ferragamo share a lot. They are part of families that basically contributed to create the fascination of Made in Italy. If we are all here fascinated by fashion, and if Made in Italy formula is still charming millions of people around the world, this is basically thank you to people like Salvatore Ferragamo, that is James' grandfather, who more or less 1 century ago moved from Italy to America and basically created a completely new concept of shoes. He basically transformed shoes from accessories, mere accessories, to object of desire, object of dream. And we have to say thank you to Nicola Trussardi, father of Beatrice, who in the generation of people such as Giorgio Armani, Gianni Versace, created the myth, the legend of the Italian stylisti, which is still going on today. Of course, Beatrice and James have the privilege and the burden to bring the family business to the next step, and they do it in a completely different way. I could say, if I can dare, James does it under the sign of continuity. He is the division director of the core business of Ferragamo, which is, of course, shoes and leather goods for men and women. Beatrice does it under the sign of evolution. She is in charge, she's the soul of the Fondazione Nicola Trussardi, which is one of the very few examples in Italy of an exceptional institution in contemporary art. Art and fashion, of course, share a lot of things. Creativity is at the heart of fashion, is at the heart of art. And execution makes fashion desirable, makes art unique. But they are all, both art and fashion are worldwide. They require a worldwide vision. And word and vision are the key words that allow me to introduce Serena Guen. She is the founder of a new concept of approaching travel through a print magazine that actually we have. She has been so kind to carry from London several copies. So through a print magazine and through a powerful website, which is suitcase.com, she's basically giving us a different perception to the world. And she tries to make traveling still desirable, still in a world that looks less and less mysterious. She gives us the opportunity of personal insight, quoting her website, helping us explore with insider knowledge and acting as a point of entry for cultures around the world. So fashion, travel, art, internet, these are all poles that are constantly moving, changing. If I learned something from my 30 years in fashion business is that nostalgia is a very, very dangerous word. It's clear that we're still fascinated by existing models of business, of understanding things, but it's clear that we're all living in a phase of transition. And so, as part of an older generation, my question to these people that belong to a younger generation, my question to all of you is, how do you envision the future? That, by the way, is a future where you have a possibility to change the things in your own fields. I think it's a good, I mean, maybe we're not so gentlemen, but let's start with James Ferragamo, because definitely the business is the one that's more connected to fashion. Feel free to make questions. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentations, but again, if you feel you need an answer immediately, you can ask. You can ask our guests. They will be delighted to answer. Thank you.
Okay, so also, anyway, it's a pleasure to be here and really nice to meet you all, and I'm sure we'll also have a chance to answer any of your questions you have also at the end of the session. I think in my case, being part also of a third generation Ferragamo, it's also a matter of how do you create that continuity. My father is very candid and open about it, and he always says, you know, the third generations are the risky generation. That's when everything goes wrong with the third generation. So how do we make sure that in a company like Ferragamo, we can make sure that this does not happen? So the rules were put in place, you know, limiting the number of family members to a maximum of 3 that could work into the family business, so that the company is has been floated on the stock exchange since 2011, but it is attracted to professional managers, and it has a limited role in as an operative part of the business of family members to a maximum of 3. So that's me on the leather goods, my cousin that does retail for Italy, and my other cousin that does digital, so e-commerce. To answer your question, I mean, I think that definitely fashion is something that is in continuous evolution. My grandfather was a prime example of that. I think, you know, he started making shoes which were object of desire, really pieces of art, shoes that were made during the Second World War, where you could not find materials. He was able to invent new materials and never stopped creating. We have an amazing archive, and Massimiliano Giornetti, our creative director, always goes to that to try and get inspiration from the next season that we want to develop. And even in that, we can see that my grandfather started in his careers in his first shoes that were made in the 1920s, so the last shoes that he created in the 1960s, and they're very different. And they're very different because they're very current with what was life like in the 60s. So there was much more of that industrial revolution already starting. There was that need of having a shoe that you could wear. And so his products that were at the beginning object almost of art, of collectors, as he started as making shoes for the first films that were actually produced in Hollywood. Later on, he also was able to introduce also shoes that were more for the first women that were coming into careers. He was also doing men's shoes. He was really expanding that. So coming to me and coming to what should Ferragamo do going forward, it's never really stop that innovation. Be true to what is the core fundamental of any company that is founded, and in Ferragamo the fundamental is definitely quality, craftsmanship, that Italian savoir-faire, that ability of really working with artisans, and that collaboration with artisans that has always been true to the brand. But keeping that in mind, having ways of really increasing our innovation in the products that we create by offering products that can go from the innovation that you have today in sneakers to the new collections that Massimiliano has just presented last Sunday at the fashion show in Milan. I'm only stopping at the product. I mean, I can go on and talk about the market, but I don't. Maybe next.
Actually, if any of you had the chance to look at any publication about shoes of Ferragamo, it's like, you know, oh my God, you know, they did everything, and you know, people like you know, important players like Louboutin, they look like dwarfs. I mean, compared to this amazing. And the good point, so the important point is that, you know, Salvatore Ferragamo was really at the heart of this generation. I mean, you have this comparison between what was contemporary art at the time, that probably, you know, doesn't look contemporary now, but it was, you know, so modern at the time. Was creating shoes, and the shoes still look very modern. So this is really something that yes, counts.
Counts very important. Yes. You know, you have to be able to maintain that modernity, and that every brand has its own reason for being. I mean, I think that it's important that you can maintain that when you create, and that you're true to yourself. You don't try to do something that represents something else. You have to be able to say, ah, yes, it's a Ferragamo product. It does have that salsa, that charm.
You named Massimiliano Giornetti, who has been your creative director for kind of number of years now.
Since 2009.
And I guess he's doing, I mean, from my point of view, he's doing an amazing job, which is the interaction between you as a part of the family and Massimiliano doesn't come from the family.
Well, he's a creative director, so in reality he has to choose everything, and he's the one who approves everything that we do. So it's a continuous collaboration in trying to drive the business and drive the growth in the business, and respecting his aesthetic, and proposing also to him what we could do to develop a new business category. A category that my father is very determined on is a walking shoe, which is not a sneaker. Something that we can introduce in a way that it's also a very light product and has some technological advancement. So, you know, we give this idea to Massimiliano, and he thinks about it, we think about it together, we come up with some ideas, and it's a continuous collaboration on specific product or on developing a fashion show. So he gives us the inspiration of something that he takes from the archive. It was this patchwork for this last fashion show that we just had last Sunday. And so based on that idea, then we developed some shoes together with our shoe designer. So it's a continuous collaboration.
Yeah, because it's very difficult from, you know, Salvatore Ferragamo, of course, is still a brand based, the core business is still shoes and bags. But of course, like every brand, is transforming into a lifestyle brand. So basically, you sell everything from you know, silk accessories to fragrances to ready-to-wear, and it's always difficult to, you know, enlarge your creative vision from whatever it is, but it's an accessory, to a lifestyle concept. So I do think it's not an easy challenge that you have, but I do think it's successful. So I invite all of you to see the recent fashion show that has been last week.
Last Sunday, yeah.
That is really amazing. And there is a continuous quote of Sonia Delaunay, I guess. You know, the same pattern that probably has been used through art to shoes and to contemporary fashion. As we're talking about contemporary art, maybe it's the right time to ask Beatrice to contribute to what is contemporary now.
I'm an NYU student. I lived in New York until '99, and then I went back to Italy, to Milan, to run part of my family company. And also, since my study is at NYU, were about contemporary art history and managing, so art business and administration. I had the big fortune to run the family foundation, which was focusing at the time on culture and different disciplines. And I had the fortune and the opportunity to first experiment different things, and then to find the future for this institution, as Marco was mentioning before, but also what was missing at that moment in Milan, in Italy. And so I tried to imagine and to realize something which was unique. At the beginning, we have a big location in Milan, our headquarters, in which there was an art space, and before I came, when I was studying at NYU, they were doing some exhibition with a variety of disciplines, of topics, And so I decided to explore the connection between art and fashion. So I tried different, for example, I invited Philip Tracy, who is a hat creator, and we did a collaboration.
Visionary, I would say. Creator is maybe not enough.
Yeah. And so we did an exhibition in Milan of his molds, what you see above, which are the molds on which he builds and prepares his hats. And in exchange, he created some prêt-à-porter hats for our fashion show, which are completely different from this fantastic creation. And they were like regular hats, wearable hats, made of leather, which is also the first material for Trussardi. So I tried this connection between art and fashion. Another one, I asked this artist, Ingeborg Luscher, was the wife of Zeman, Harald Zeman. She wanted to do this crazy project. She wanted to make a video of two soccer teams, but wearing suits, formal suits. So she asked me if I could give Trussardi suits for this video, and we did it. And so in the art space, we exhibited the video, the photographs, and in exchange she gave us some of the pictures to be used as advertising for Trussardi men line. And so this was an example. So I tried different of these experiments, but to me it wasn't enough, because I was coming from New York, which is the contemporary art world. You have everything, a fantastic museum, so many galleries, it's incredible. In Italy we have a different kind of heritage, as you can see in this fantastic villa. We have the ancient heritage, but there was not enough attention to contemporary art. So I tried to understand how to bring contemporary art to the public. Also in Milan we don't have any contemporary art museum, which is incredibly strange, but it's true. So I made a research for about a year, talking to many curators, even if I also had an experience in New York at MoMA in the curatorial department. That wasn't my skill, and so I decided to hire a young curator, and in the end after a year of research I found this young man. At the moment he was just a critic correspondent, and now is the creative director of my foundation, but he's also associate director of a new museum in New York, Massimiliano Gioni. And we decided a new strategy. Basically we wanted to bring art to the people. We wanted people to
to stumble
in an art piece. And so that was our first exhibition. This is Galleria Vittorio Emanuele in Milan. This is a piece of Elmgreen and Draxet, to a couple of artists from...
Sorry, Beatrice, just for you, if you're not familiar with Milan, this is one of the most important galleries in Milan, and basically connects Duomo on one side and La Scala on the other side. So just for you to imagine where they
the luxury Galleria. You have all the luxuries.
Yeah, Prada, Store, Armani, Gucci, all of them are around.
And not McDonald's.
Yeah, very placed.
And that's Versace, Prada, Louis Vuitton.
Exactly.
But it's really the heart of the city, and it's a kind of, very formal heart of the city. So
but a lot of people. This was shot at probably 6 a.m. because we mounted the piece during the night, and this was a nice thing to tell. The the mayor forgot to inform the police people, and so they put a ticket on the car because they thought it was a real car with a real caravan. But after this event, like thousands of people walking every day in this gallery really hit on this piece, and they were wondering, what is that? So we decided to also produce some little catalogs and leaflets to inform that was a piece of art, and that was the beginning. So basically what we do is to find locations in Milan which are, this was the first, and I explained what was the aim, but all the others we reopened fantastic places, institutional places, ancient places, private, public, and so on, but close to the public, with the contemporary art exhibition. And so people from Milan, all over the world, tourists, everybody, because the exhibitions are free, can enter and visit this space with a dialogue with the contemporary art exhibition and pieces which the artist produced for that particular space. This is a medieval palace in Milan, and this is the video installation of an artist, Darren Ormond. This is another controversial.
Very controversial.
But actually, with this, contemporary art went on the first page of newspaper for 1 week, and all the news on TV, and it didn't happen for 50 years.
At least,
because it opened a very long debate on what contemporary art could do, and if it was a provocation or it was like an advertising expedient, or if it was real art. This is Maurizio Cattelan. I don't know if some of you know.
Maurizio Cattelan is probably our most
known Italian artist
exactly.
over the world, and he did a huge retrospective at the Guen Museum 4 years ago.
No, that's like 2 years ago.
Okay. So this was also very strong, but we had the result that people started, and also the opinion, the reader, people around the city, and also important writers and opinion leaders can debate on what is contemporary art.
Yeah, also because this tree, again, because again, we're probably not familiar with Milan, this tree is in the middle of a very high traffic square, so it's just a tree in the middle of the square. So I guess that it's people passing by had a kind of heart attack.
Tree in Milan.
Exactly, it's the ancient tree in Milan, but it's not in a private garden or in a museum. It's in a public square with very high traffic. So I guess that
the debate around, because this lasted like 36 hours instead of 1 month, because our exhibition usually lasts 1 month, because some people, not all of them, were such irritated. Then a worker climbed in and cut the ropes. And so the mannequins were damaged, and we decided not to put it back again.
But the effect of the exhibition was there anyway.
Yeah. This was another one in the central station in Milan. You have such fantastic rooms which are Sala Reale, royal rooms. And we did this John Bock video exhibition. This is a fantastic tree made of iron with all his drawings hung up, and it's in another institute, not open. I mean, Istituto dei Ciechi, but the building is not open regularly to the public. And he did also this bread house, and some little parrots were staying in the house and eating the bread for a month. This is in another building in Milan, but anyways, we don't know filologico, very, very rare. This is in Piazza Duomo. Actually, today this building was converted in Museo del Novecento, Museum of the 20th Century Art in Milan. And before it was restored, we did this exhibition, Martin Creed, an English artist, and with this neon light outside, and inside some other big installation of his work. This was a zoo of wild animals in this magazzini of Porta Genova, behind the railway station, and also the ancient storage of the station, but not used. Now, fortunately, they use them to do fashion shows, because before we did this, they were completely decadent, not used. So one of our mission is to make a statement to the mayor and to the public institutions saying, look, what kind of space not used in Milan we have, so you can just fill them with art, with whatever, and you have already the museums. You don't have to build any Archistar building. So this was these animals lived there for 1 month. They had their own stable.
At the stable.
Stables and food and everything, and it was really strange how they connected for species, like the goat with the llama, the duck with, for different kind of species, they socialized each other basically. And also she put this Italian artist Paola Pivi put this caccia upside down, exactly. This was another big one. Actually, they told us in New York you could never produce something like that. Also with New York Public Art Fund, we asked them if they wanted exhibition after that, but they said no, it's too controversial. It's a Polish artist. This exhibition was about his portraits, and inside a fantastic building in the center of this Parco Sempione, the major park in Milan, we had other sculptures and pieces of his portraits, and this was a huge portrait we produced ex novo, which is a balloon, come un pallone di mongolfiera.
Like a hot air balloon filled with helium, actually.
Exactly, and it stayed for a month hanging on the park. It was huge. He came also to Florence in 2011 in exhibition.
Hopefully not in a windy day like yesterday.
This was the other characters of this portrait he put in the fantastic palazzina. Okay, this is a fantastic building in the center of Milan of the 17th century, Palazzo Litta, and it was used as office for the railway services, Ferrovie dello Stato, for 1 century or so. So nobody could enter and visit this fantastic place. As they decided for a new destination, we asked them to use it to produce an exhibition, and this Fischli and Weiss, couple of Swiss artists, very famous, filled the rooms with their basic objects stolen by the common life. You can see this, which is very in contrast with the environment. This is another one, too long to explain. This is another one. But here you can see some buildings we took were like that. So we had to restore them and to make them available before producing the exhibition. So this is something the foundation also does. This is a Paul McCarthy huge exhibition we had in Palazzo Cusani in Brera, in Milan. This is a restoration made by Stirling, an important architect made in the 80s, and after that it wasn't finished, and this huge room underground, underneath the basement of this palace, it was supposed to be to host actually the School of Brera, some extension of Brera School, but they didn't finish it, and it's like that. And this is a huge piece of Paul McCarthy, Pig Island, never exhibited before all around the world. It was the first time he took up just from his studio directly there, and there was no way to enter. So this is how we had to we had to invent a different way to install it. This is a cinema, Teatro Manzoni, Cinema Manzoni, Milan, and this is an exhibition of Pipilotti e Rist. This is a soap boats, and the projection in this Liberty fantastic decoration. One of the latest. These are it's a caserma,
military compound
in Milan, and you have these fantastic places where the bread was made during the war for all the region, not only Milan. They produced the bread for all the Lombardia, and they are still exactly the same with this fantastic color. And in these bread rooms, we have these ovens, huge ovens. We did this exhibition of Cyprien Gaillard. This last one, allora in Calzadilla, Palazzo Cusani in Milan. They are now in next Biennale in May, and also they are a couple of American artists very famous. This was a pianist playing the opposite inside with a hole inside of the piano and moving around the Salone da Ballo. Okay, this is another project. Okay, so last year we stopped our production because this year in Milan we have Expo, the Universal Exposition about food, and it's about nutrition, how to feed the planet and new energy for life. So we have two big projects this year. The first one we just opened last weekend. And this year we are doing collaboration with other partners. For this first one we did a collaboration with another private foundation. And we brought this American artist, Agnes Dennis, to Milan to redo this project she did in 82 in Battery Park, New York. Basically, she decided to create a wheat field. This is the rendering of the wheat field in this area in Milan. This is the more futuristic area we have in Milan with all the skyscrapers around. And just also the latest in terms of architectural building, retails, municipal.
Yeah, it's really, actually it's a very, very brand new area. It's not finished yet. It's going to be finished in a couple of weeks, hopefully. So it's really, it's what moved Milan from being a modern city, but a little bit, how can I say, old style, to a kind of contemporary capital. So we started to build the first skyscrapers in Milan that probably are normal for you American, but are absolutely not normal for us in Italy. We had important architects such as Cesar Pelli or Boeri, and they did this kind of new area that has I can say, consistent direction, but it's made of different buildings with different identity, and they all around a space, which is the one of the rendering, that actually has been closed for the city in the last
60 years.
60 years.
So in the center of Milan.
In the center of Milan was invisible actually, it was just closed by fences, and it has always been closed. So now they built this
all around
building.
Because this piece of land is owned by the comune.
By the Italian Council, by the Milanese Council.
Okay, and in 2016 they will create a park, a public park, but for Expo it was still nothing. So people working in this area asked us, this other foundation, to do a project in partnership, and our curator asked this artist Agnes Dennis to reproduce this wheat field. And last weekend we went, 6,000 people went there to put the seeds, to plant the seeds in the land.
6,000 people from the city, correct?
Yeah, people, I mean, it was, everybody was invited, it was completely open, you were going inside the area, they were giving you all these small cups with the seeds, and look, 6,000 people in 2 hours came to plant their own wheat field. And in July, we will go to cut the wheat, and the artist will decide what to do with this.
The harvest.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so next to the big exhibition, I have just this image because we didn't even the press conference will be the Great Mother in Palazzo Reale besides the Duomo Cathedral, and this will be in partnership with the Public Institution of Milan. It will be like a small biennale of about 100 artists, and it will be a huge exhibition. We'll be producing about the theme of the mother as the first primary source of nutrition. And it will go on artists from the end of the 20th century, 19th century until today. So Duchamp, Frida Kahlo, and Jeff Koons, if I can. This is Cindy Sherman. So we'll have the press conference at the end of this month, and it will be opened August 25. It will be staying for a couple of months in Palazzo Reale. Okay.
Thank you, Beatrice. And of course, I guess we have a lot of questions because these are really challenging and interesting documents. Before coming back to art, please, Serena, it's your turn to tell us which is your vision of the future. I mean, as I told, the world is becoming less and less mysterious. Apparently, is it true or is it not? I mean, apparently it's not, from what I could see from your website.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me. It's such an honor to be on stage next to two of the most important fashion houses in Italy. So I'll give you a little bit of background. I don't know how much you know about Suitcase, but I started it during my third year at NYU. I was in the Global Liberal Studies program, studying in Paris. And my first year in Paris, I actually didn't have that good of an experience. I didn't really like it because I just didn't get it. I just didn't understand the city. And then I came back again, and I met a lot of amazing people there, and I kind of had this new perspective on it. So I wanted to start something which basically took the dialogue around travel and put it back in the hands of local, specifically like local creatives, to make it interesting again. And that's why I combined it with fashion. And I started it with a print magazine because even though everyone said that print was dying, I thought about how many websites there were out there, like millions, and how many magazines there were out there. And to create what I wanted to do, it seemed to make much more sense to create something a bit more permanent, more collectible, because newest doesn't always mean best. So I started with a quarterly print magazine and then built the digital side around it, because that's more useful, basically, when you're traveling, to have the guides on your mobile, to have it on a website so you can see what's opening and things. And it's grown so much since. I started with just another girl, and now we're a team of 8 in London, with hundreds and hundreds of contributors. And yeah, each issue has a theme, each quarterly issue. Our next theme is water. Yeah, and it's such an exciting venture to be a part of. And NYU was so helpful to me because basically my degree in global liberal studies taught me to consider different cultures in context with each other, which I think is something really important to do now that everyone's traveling so much, and like our millennial generation is more aware of everything that's going on around them.
Thank you. At this point, thank you, Serena, everyone is more than welcome to put questions.
Hi, so I have a question for you, Serena. So with your magazine, did you do any internships beforehand? Did you have any other type of work experience, or did you just start?
I'd actually only interned at one magazine for a week before, which was good and it was bad. It was good because it meant that I didn't have a concept of how hard it was to create a magazine, and it also meant that I had no boundaries. So what I was creating turned out to be more like a book than like a magazine. But there's so much information out there that literally I was just Googling how to start a magazine. I talked to, one of the biggest mistakes I found with people, like friends and things who are starting businesses, is they don't talk about it with anyone. They want to keep the idea for themselves because they're scared that someone's going to steal it. I talked about it with everyone that I knew, from professors to friends and things, and everyone has something to offer. And from that, I basically managed to do it.
And I guess a follow-up question. So the marketing standpoint in terms of getting your name out there, your magazine and your website, what was your approach on that?
Well, obviously, because I was starting it, I didn't really have a big budget. So I adopted some kind of guerrilla tactics, which were things like getting all my friends to put their cover photo on Facebook as Suitcase. And that actually weirdly drove like a lot of awareness around it, starting social media before the magazine actually launched. So there's a lot of things you can do with social media, and kind of gives you the same tools as the bigger companies have. So kind of creating a brand before it actually launched. And then when we did our launch party, we did it in Shoreditch House, which is a place where I knew a lot of the media would happen to be anyway. And I saved a lot of our first budget for that launch party, and all the press that we wanted to came. And we got a lot of press off the back of that, and then that kind of helped build it from there.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Ferragamo. Hailing from such a influential Florentine brand and sort of name, how have you seen specifically Florentine style change over the years, or if it has more so than any other Italian city or area, if it has its own specific styles?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I was brought up here, and I then went to boarding school in England and university to NYU, undergraduate, and worked at Saks, and then I finished with an MBA. And when I came back here, I always thought Florence never changed. And I must say, it really never changes, except for one or two new buildings that have been created. It is, however, a city which has a lot of, it's quite dynamic. There's a lot of people that come through the city every year. I think there's estimated over 5 million tourists that go through Florence every year. So it is a city that, because of that, changes quite often its approach. I think also Matteo Renzi was very influential in trying to improve the city, very smart also. He organized the tour, the World Cycling Tour around Florence, so they were able to redo the streets for free, which was a very good thing. But beside that, I think it's a city also with PT, which tries to also bring back interest to the more contemporary, more artistic approach to fashion. And so that's an appointment that has become more important also since Berlin has stopped in the last season.
Sorry if I interrupted you. The PT, for one of you who doesn't know, is the most important menswear fair, trade fair, that we host in Florence every 6 months. And it's becoming bigger and bigger. And again, it changed the way it shows menswear through the year, so it's a good sign of flexibility in a city that doesn't seem flexible at the first time, but in reality it is. It is a very good example of Florence.
And also, I think also the great thing about Florence is that collaboration with artisans. Going back to my grandfather, he was from Naples, well, close to Naples, in a city, in a town called Bonito, and he chose when he came back from the States, he chose Florence because of that collaboration with artisans. So that ability to really be able to work with Santa Croce, which is where all the tanneries are, the production of handbags, production of shoes with people which have been able to transcend from generation to generation this concept of savoir-faire, knowing how to do things in a specific way, in a different way, which is very important for fashion, because you're able to introduce season after season novelties that are not just done by extreme designs, but are also done because of collaboration and that artisanal approach to doing shoes which are made out of unexpected materials or unexpected construction or anything. I mean, we've done really a lot of.
And by the way, this know-how is really our best barrier to entry for worldwide competition, because you can copy an idea or you can have better ideas, but to be able to execute them in the way Florentine artisans or Italian artisans do it is almost impossible to copy, or it takes much more time and energy. So it's really what makes Italian, made in Italy, still different from anything else.
Hi, this is for James Ferragamo. I'm wondering how, as a company that's so established, you balance the need to evolve in the fashion industry with having such a heavy history. Like, how is it that you monitor sort of the aesthetic of your brand with also needing to move on to the future?
Well, it is actually very challenging. That is the most difficult thing, because if it was a brand new brand, or if it was a brand that had to reinvent itself, you have an open slate. You can really start and do whatever you want, whatever is your desire. Ferragamo, being a brand that has been around since 1927, has many history. It has the history of the founder, has the history of the second generation, my father and his brothers and sisters, that developed the ready-to-wear, the silk accessories, the shoes, the handbags, the men's or the women's. It has so much history that today, when we work on the aesthetics of the collection, Massimiliano has to put all this information together in a way that it's coherent from an aesthetic standpoint. And it is challenging because you cannot replicate what happened in history. You have to be able to move forward. And so also the way you dress, also the ties, for example. Not so many people are wearing ties anymore, so it's not something that you can insist in saying, oh, we have to do ties. I mean, we don't have ties anymore on our fashion shows because people don't wear ties anymore. The style has changed. It doesn't mean that we're not doing ties. I mean, still it's one of our biggest part of the collection. But still, you have to be able to give that ability to say, okay, Ferragamo has to be this representation, has to be something that really represents a certain aesthetic, a certain timelessness to the product. And within those constraints, we then add the creativity and the innovation to the collection. But it is something that it's, you have to be within certain boundaries, because otherwise you lose your perception, your brand perception. But within those, you have to be able to innovate season after season.
This question's for Serena. So running a magazine, especially a fashion magazine with editorials and borrowing clothes from designers, etc., requires a lot of emailing, a lot of networking with designers and PR companies and things like that. Did you find it hard to be taken seriously as a student starting your own magazine? And if so, how did you combat that?
Definitely found it hard in the beginning. But I think one of the things I saw from Suitcase and then also other magazines that are starting out is if you have a strong creative vision and the content you're producing is of very high quality, then designers and things will end up coming to you, or when you approach them, they'll be okay with having their clothes look like that, because they're worried that basically you'll take their pieces and then do something horrible with them. We also had to look at a little bit who we were featuring, because we weren't aware of certain brands, frictions, anything like that. But through time, yeah, it'll come through time and just creative vision.
I have one question for Beatrice. I think what you're doing is amazing with art, and I would like to ask you what drives you. Is it giving back to the community, or do you want to be a collector? Are you a collector, or do you want to follow what Saatchi or other people are doing in the art world? What drives you?
We don't collect. we call us Elomedic institutions because it's a non-profit, of course, because with new production, we pay for the new production for the artist, but then the pieces stay with the artist, so basically we don't collect. And thinking about using ancient location with big heritage and history, combining them with contemporary artists, but also about tradition and innovation, what we was talking about before, and also my family company has to deal every day with these products. And so looking at what is around us and inspire us and producing something new, also we have to remember what is the task of the artist. They have to explore and to express and to represent to us what is the world around us. And that sometimes, most of the time, they do it before we even recognize it. So that's why they are pioneer of, not really pioneer, but they interpret the world around us in a different way, so they make us think about the world around us. And in this sense, it's a good combination between history and future, about heritage and contemporaneity and so on. We don't know. I mean, when we started, we took as a model Art Angel in London and the New York Public Art Fund in New York. But then we really are unique kind of institution.
And to James, have you ever thought about doing something like this, or you're too focused on the business?
No, I'm more on the business side, but we do have an exhibition that we change every year. We have in the Pozzo di Beatrice, which is on the lower level below our shop in Via Tornabuoni here in Florence. We have an exhibition that changes every year. So this year is about balance, and it's inspired by my grandmother always insists on this innovation that my grandfather actually had 400 patents that he had created, and one of them was this steel shank which reinforces the arch of the foot between the heel and the front of the foot, and it's this arch that is the arch of that really, she says, withholds the beauty of the human body in wearing in the shoes. And this concept was the inspiration of a collaboration with artists. We have some pieces from the Uffizi gallery that were donated for this event. So every year we change based on the concept. Next year is going to be to Palazzo Ferroni, which is the building that where it resides, and so a different exhibition about that.
Hello. I have a question for Beatrice. Your projects are exciting, and I found the most astonishing one from those that you have shown, the mannequins which were hung at the top of the tree. And so I wanted to know more about this debate and what was the idea behind it, what was the message of the artist, and so some more information about this project. Thank you.
Usually artists don't want to be, I mean, they want people to get what they see, what they interpret. They don't want translation. That also we try to educate people, but not to explicitly say this is what we wanted to say, because I mean, it's too shortcut. It's much more complex. But so the debate, you wanted to know about the debate. What was the problem? I mean, you went there and you could see 3 mannequins of 3 kids hung, and they were not really dead because they had their open eyes and they were looking at you. So my personal interpretation was that they were looking at you, asking you questions about the world around. That was my personal, but I'm sure everybody had his own, her own interpretation. And so, as I said, for 1 week, all the newspaper in Italy, but not only because New York Times talked about that, or in Australia, everywhere around the world, but on the front page on Italian newspapers. and many opinion leaders in Italy wrote about their own interpretation of that. At the end, the result of the debate was positive, like that was acceptable, this kind of provocation was acceptable, and actually also there was a message brought by a mother of the neighborhood. At the beginning she was like shocked, why they dare to do that? But after she was thinking for a week, and then she understood, and she wrote this beautiful message to the people. So we put this note underneath the tree, but if you go on the website, you can see all the pages of about the debate.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
If I can add something to what Beatrice said, I mean, it's clear that the contemporary art is virtually endless, and you know, the selection of artists that they did and she shown across the different slides is very interesting, because it's a mix of very established artists. Maurizio Cattelan is definitely one of the, I don't know, I would say Paul McCarthy too, but even Elmgren and Drax, the one of the car of the accident, that now are kind of stars. I mean, 2003 they were probably unknown. So there is also, I do think, a heavy work of scouting of new talents. But what I say, so they mix big names and young talents, but there is a fil rouge, a common link to all of these artists that is really thought-provoking. Nothing is, I mean, can be ironic, can be, you can have a smile, or you can have could be irritated immediately, but as the real point is that everything that shown us is thought-provoking. It's something that requires a second thinking, and this is where contemporary art stays. I mean, the second thinking is yours. It has nothing to do with the artist. The artist just thrown the stone, and it's up to you to read what's happening around. So this is really linking all the different artists, not just the most provocative.
So my question is also for Ms. Trussardi. We've been exploring the lack of contemporary art here in Florence. So my question is, do you feel that your work has made a long-lasting impact in Milan on the contemporary art scene in Italy? And also, where do you spoke about various artists that have been working on these projects, but where are the young emerging Italian artists who are into contemporary art? Are they all in New York, or?
Let's start from that. We had a project like 10 years on our website. Every month we asked emerging Italian artists to create the cover for our website. So basically it was anything, an image, painting, drawing, everything they wanted. So we gave them a window on our website to show what or who they were. And the other question is if we want to do this, in Florence,
No, the impact of your work on the contemporary art scene in general in Italy. Just because, for example, here in Florence we found that there's a big lack of contemporary art. So do you feel like your work is making a long-lasting impact on the contemporary art scene here?
Probably, people don't know about our work if they are not in Milan, but people work in the art field, they know our work very well all around the world. In fact, we don't keep the works, the new pieces, but they travel. The big tree went to Palazzo Grassi in Venice because Mr. Pinault, when he bought Palazzo Grassi, bought this tree from the artist, not from us. And so they travel, like the kids went to Sevilla in Spain. The car with the caravan went to Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art, and it's still there because they bought it as a permanent collection. It's in the square in front of the museum. So the pieces travel, not in Italy. It's about the sensibility of Italian.
But it's affecting.
But Mr. Renzi, when he was still the mayor of Florence, we had in 2011, it was the anniversary, 100th anniversary of Trussardi brand. And we did for Kitty a fashion show and a big exhibition about the foundation projects for about 9 years. And he came, it was at Stazione Leopolda, and he came to visit and to see, and he said, yeah, we should do this in Florence. So, I'm sure also with Ellen, we've been talking about that. And, we don't have the resources to bring this project all around Italy, but I'm sure Italy should do it, something like that.
But maybe Beatrice is even too humble, because as a previous Milanese person, I can really confirm that, you know, she changed, or let's say the Fondazione changed the perception of contemporary art to a lot of people. Maybe still a niche, but I would say a bigger niche than before. And it's also curious that, you know, the other competitor of Beatrice in this field is Prada, so it's another fashion brand with different projects and with probably completely different levels, but they are very sincere and very, how can I say, real in doing a contemporary art project in Venice now, but they're building this huge museum in Milan that will be open with Expo. We all think that Expo will be a great opportunity under a lot of point of view, including this, because the exhibition that they are preparing for Palazzo Reale, but even the Whitfield that we've seen before will definitely be, you know, word of mouth or people all around the world, and maybe will arrive to Italian people too. As a closing Versailles circle.
Thank you. Marco, you said you wanted to talk about the future, and all three of you are in the space between sort of fashion has become a lifestyle thing, not just sort of nice clothing, and then these students here are in a, you know, digitally native generation. So I'm curious, you know, you have stores, you have a foundation of art, and Serena, you started a magazine and said something that looks closer to a book, and now you're moving into a, you know, a site presence, digital presence. Sort of where you see all of this moving, are people still going to go to stores and look at a pair of shoes and examine it and see the craft in it, or you think it's going to move into another space? And it seems fashion is much broader than it used to be, but I'm curious what all three of you think in terms of the physical presence and the object versus digital presence, and how you have to be situated in that new world which is global and, you know, more on computers and screens. Oh, Ellen wants me to tell everybody who I am. I teach at, I'm a professor and vice provost at NYU, and I teach photography and imaging, and I oversee a couple other things at the university, so I'm an administrator and a faculty member.
So you're not looking for an internship here?
I do want to do an internship with Serena, actually. So I'll send her some writing about my travels.
Well, I'm obviously in a totally different position because I'm kind of more observing the behaviors of like a millennial generation rather than like the whole market, and I don't have a fashion product. But what I'm seeing with this digitally native generation is that because people are more aware of what's happening around the world and they have access to products and things on the internet as well as in stores, that people are tending to browse more rather than directly shop and buy items that will last like a bit longer rather than shopping all the time for faster fashion. And I think that also one of the most important things is that for us, physical stores are still important because the digital technology for online shopping is still not quite there yet. And you still want to see how things will fit you, how they feel, like what the quality is, especially for brands that you might not have bought from before. So having a balance between online shopping or e-commerce and brick and mortar is quite important.
Yeah.
No, I think that definitely the part of the e-commerce is going to become much more important. I think we learn also from the States, they're definitely that if you look at a department store like Neiman Marcus, 23% of their sales comes from online versus brands like us, which doesn't reach 10%. So I think it's something, and even for us in the States, it's still relatively still quite small. It's not about only the offering that you do of your product online, but it's also the way you search on how easy it is to shop online, and what are the additional benefits that you can give to somebody that can shop online. We also sell in the States to YOOX, as I was also mentioning, and there's a YOOX Couture part of their like a mini site within their site. And it's incredible, the service that they're able to do. They actually are proud to say that they have a 52% return percentage, which is high, and they're happy about that because they want customers to buy 3 sizes so that they're sure they're going to make the sale, and the customer can return the sizes that doesn't fit, which is a completely different concept. We still focus on doing our e-commerce and trying to reduce that cost of the return rate. So it's really shaping the business in a completely different concept. There's of course all the issues that are linked to the logistics, to the reconditioning of these products that have been shipped and they have to be shipped back. But it gives you the possibility to shop outside of the regular shopping hours. It gives you the possibility to reach an audience that maybe is not based in New York, it's not based in Los Angeles, it's not based in where we have the major stores, or they live in Texas and we might not have a big store in Texas, but they want to see it in a full assortment. So online gives you that possibility. Europe is still behind, I think, in that. Maybe a little bit because of the infrastructure. My wife always complains we cannot get delivery from the supermarket to our house because the roads are too small, and so the truck, the Esselunga doesn't deliver to where we live. But so there are some infrastructure problems. But definitely we see that is something that can only improve going forward.
I agree with James. Also, we are powered by YOOX, our e-commerce. And I can add that, I don't know in the United States now, but in Asia, many people use shops, regular shops, as a showroom to look at the pieces, but then they buy it on the tablets, on the iPhone directly, even if they are in front of the product and in front of the cashier, but they want to buy it online. So I don't know if it's like that in the United States already, but I think that is also, it will be the future.
My question is for Serena. I was wondering, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in taking Suitcase from an idea between 2 people into the success that it is today? And what is like some advice you would have for someone who's trying to do a similar thing, like taking an idea and a passion and turning it into something real and like a career?
There's so many challenges. Probably one of the biggest ones was actually taking like a passion project and turning it into what could be like a sustainable business. But just by creating a product that I knew that I wanted and I knew that my peers wanted, that meant that other people wanted brands and people that I wanted to work with tourism wasn't able to buy into it. I'd say the most important advice I give for when someone's wanting to start a business is to make sure that you know why you're starting it, and to also talk to other people and see that there is like a market for it, because you can get really quite like short-sighted in what you want, and you can get caught up in your idea and forget to test it before you actually launch it, and then you might not see a big fault in it and it might fail then. But if you are sure that you want it and that your friends want it and maybe your friends' friends want it, then there's a chance that like it will work.
My question is for James. So I'm just wondering, I'm curious about like the process, because you're talking about how like you have this idea for a shoe that's a everyday shoe but not a sneaker. So you have this idea in your head and this concept. What is the process of taking that to the next step and actually coming to a final product that you're going to sell in the store?
It's really a matter of finding something that is, first of all, has to be aesthetically pleasing, beautiful, something that Massimiliano likes, and understanding which one is the different direction that we will then choose from to take a final direction. One idea was to do the material which was completely unlined, deconstructive shoe on an EVA sole that made it extremely light. Another idea was to go completely ecological, so to do it that was vegan, so it had no leather in it, no product. but then maybe they said that that would be a little bit hypocritical, so we said maybe we could not do that. So we are choosing different ideas to see how can we create that product that could be avoided into the market to be able to fill that need. We take into consideration also the different customer. We're a global brand, so we have to also reply to the 64 countries that we sell our products in, and what are the different needs that they might have, and what is the different needs not only from a typology, but how do they perceive the product? What is the colors that work better for that customer? What is the different materials that would work better for those different markets? And understand how to take that into consideration in developing a product that responds to those needs. So there's a little bit of a marketing, but then all that marketing we try to, in a sense, make it work after. We first of all want to make sure that the idea is correct, and then that the marketing can fit in. If that process is done in the opposite direction, then sometimes it becomes too much of a calculation, and then the calculation doesn't give the emotions. So you have to be able to still give the emotions to products that we do in the business that we do. It's not just about doing a great shoe at a great price. It has to be a shoe that somebody really wants because there's a desire for that product.
My question's for Serena. Having started your magazine at such a young age, like still in university, and as you said, without very much magazine experience beforehand, how did you go about actually physically creating the magazine, just figuring out how to put it together, finding publishers in the beginnings?
Well, first of all, I went out and bought every single magazine and looking at, basically doing research into what my competitors doing, and even my non-direct competitors were doing, seeing what I liked about it, what I didn't like about what they were doing, and kind of learning from their mistakes, reading about their stories. That was a really good base. And then I happened to know one other person who worked at a magazine, and I asked her who printed and distributed her magazine. And I went directly to the distributor and to the printer, and I said, hey, look, I've got this idea. If you're really clear about what your idea is and how it's different from other magazines, because they're the ones who are going to have to sell it for you, and they want to see that you're going to be a long-lasting business. They were really keen about a different kind of travel magazine. So they said they agreed to it. And yeah, I just basically researched all my competitors.
Hi, I have a question for Mr. Ferragamo. I was wondering how your company has, adapted to the change in technology with e-commerce and social media, and like what challenges you faced while doing so with transitioning, the signature Ferragamo brand and translating that into a social media and technological world.
From a media standpoint,
yeah.
We have a department that really tries to focus onto the different media channels to try and get more space, more voice onto those channels of communication. We have an office based in New York that is works specifically also onto those aspects, and also one based in Milan that coordinates the other regions, so everything that is from Japan to China, and so we work very much with the different regions. We're actually quite regionalized, so it's not only it's not everything done in Florence as a headquarter, but it's done also in the 6 regions, so in Japan, Greater China, the rest of Asia, and Europe, and US and Latin America. So they all have their, they really work on the specific markets. Then from a technological standpoint, we try to create, give them the tools, but then they have to implement in their specific markets.
My question is for Beatrice. Comparing Florence to Milan, Milan is, I feel like people often expect to find contemporary art since it is a more industrial city, but do you see a future for Florence for contemporary art and culture, whereas people come here and they get off a Centimeno novella and they expect to see the Duomo right away, but if they first see something else like children hanging from a tree, do you think that will ever be well received here in Florence?
Thank you, Madison. Nice question.
Marco is here, or James, or Ellen can answer better than me about that, because I really don't know. Florentine people, but as James was saying before, how many tourists do you have every year?
5 million.
5 million. So I'm sure that something like that could enrich and enhance the heritage of the city. I'm sure about that. Then the response of the Florentine probably at the beginning would be very
maybe shy,
suspicious,
yeah.
and then they will get used. Like it happened in Milan. Also, Milanese people at the beginning were not like paying attention, and now they appreciate. And every time we have an exhibition, at the opening, we have a really long line waiting to enter because they're really curious of what they're going to see that time, the new time. Of the new exhibition, and so I think new fans are joining every time, every year, and it's about habits. It's about educating people to approach things in a different way.
Yeah. And we also have the example of Venice, which is a city that is even more like museum-fied than Florence, which hosts the Venice Biennale, which is really one of the most important worldwide appointments for contemporary art. And it's not like Venice and Biennale, it's Biennale inside Venice. So it's a good example of possible, how can I say, positive loop. And again, it's attracting different tourists, not only the one who's really enjoying the medieval frescoes, but also tourists that want to see something new. So I do think that it's going to be an important challenge for the next future of Florence. So I agree with Beatrice.
How do you go about educating the public to approach this contemporary art scene?
Through the projects themselves. And actually, it's who was talking about nostalgia before?
Me.
So it's not like anymore like entering in an ancient place with like a dusty museum or like going back to the past, imagining how people were living in that period, which is fascinating, of course. But then it's very interesting also to create a dialogue between that period and that environment, not the period, but between that environment and a fresh vision, a fresh idea, and a combination of what is today and what was, this exchange about heritage, tradition, and innovation and contemporaneity.
Hi, this question is for Mr. Ferragamo. We've seen pretty recently that the fast fashion business has pretty much exploded. But I'm wondering if that has affected the big brands at all, aside from maybe having to do some cease and desist when Forever 21 knocks off a bag or some shoes. It's become such a mainstay, especially for youths, to purchase from stores like these. So I'm wondering if the big brands worry about it at all, or is it just an entirely different thing that you can afford to ignore?
Well, we have a legal department that really looks into and they're very, very busy at the moment. We actually have quite a big problem also for counterfeits and websites that pop up everywhere selling counterfeits. But we were able to actually win some important legal suits against that. I think at the end it's really because of what we do. We sell products that people really strive for that made in Italy. They really, really understand that artisanship, that quality of what we do. So it's immediately differentiated. We have customers that come back if their shoe after 6 months has a problem and they've been wearing it in the rain, and and it does wear out. My shoes do wear out, but we cater to those customers. So that quality and service that we offer, it's something that is not replicable at different prices, at lower prices for sure.
So this question is more in general, I guess. Maybe a little bit more directed towards you, Mr. Ferragamo. But I was looking at the images of Pitti Uomo 87 and a little bit of 86. And I've noticed that those 2 years in particular, and just very recently, accessories for men have been getting way more popular than they have been, arguably, in the recent past, and to a point where I'm starting to wonder if eventually maybe like the accessory game is going to be at an equal for both men and women. Like eventually, maybe, I don't know, like, what do you think about that? Because it seems like, at least recently, and here in Florence, me walking around, everyone has like these beautiful bags or, you know, really complex scarves or, you know, clashing patterns, cool stuff like that.
Women have more variables. They definitely buy more colors. They have the heel height, so in the shoes there's more variable options in terms of styles and silhouettes that they have. But the men's business it's an interesting question. We see in some countries, for example in China, where men's shop more than women. It's actually now not anymore. But in some countries where fashion or luxury brands are just starting out for them, the men's actually are the ones where you see the first growth, and some of the women, but in the local market, the first ones to buy are the men's. The women keep on buying when they're shopping abroad. So we see that it starts probably the men's first, then it equals out, and then it averages out around 60-40 women to men. So it is an option. Definitely there's much more creativity in the men's collections. There's less of that the black, brown, and maybe dark blue or whatever. It's much more varied in terms of materials, in terms of silhouettes. Even the accessories, there's much more crossbodies, there's less briefcases and so forth. There's much more innovation in terms of material, but also the innovation in terms of the weight and the way that people use the accessories. So backpacks are becoming something very important that are part of everybody's collection in the last seasons.
I have a question for all of you. I mean, we are talking to nice American people here in Italy, and your experience as Italian or an American abroad, I mean, in London, or American Italian in. What did it mean? I mean, made it a difference from the cultural point of view, or just from the educational point of view, or contributed to what you are now?
Wait, sorry, what's the question? The fact that going abroad?
Yeah, but basically you studied abroad and you live in a different world.
I think it was really important for me, especially starting Suitcase, to live abroad, to actually like live and breathe a different perspective on life, and get a different way of life. And I feel like now that I've traveled so much, I've taken these like bits of different countries and cities and things that I really like, and like I've brought them all back to London, and that's how I live my life now. So, for example, silly things like eating later in the day, because I was in Greece once and that's how they ate, and I really liked how they ate there. Or in New York, there's kind of like passion for what you do, and like being able to do anything at any time. So even if I finish work late, I can still go to an exhibition. And I think that living abroad allows you to appreciate it a lot more.
And studying abroad?
I think it's definitely very important to study abroad, but if you're able to do a semester abroad, like most of you are doing, I think it's a fantastic idea to be able to visit and understand how different countries work, because a lot of ideas come from that. Ideas of living in a country in a city like New York is definitely different than living in Florence, or my semester abroad that I did in London was also very interesting, even though I went to school there, but a much different experience than college, of course. So I think it's definitely very important to be able to have different experiences. From what I do now, also, I travel extensively, and having also had worked in different countries gives me the possibility of really not only seeing it from an Italian perspective, but understanding that the world is smaller, but at the same time it has its peculiarity, and you have to take those into consideration in the job that I do.
I spent more than one semester at NYU, and it really changed my life. I decided to go to the American university just because in Italy at that moment any Italian university didn't offer art management or art business. Just art history, and not contemporary. And so I moved for that reason, and I was completely satisfied because of the educational system is completely different. And I had the opportunity to do many internships in fantastic museums, and so I think it really allowed me to be prepared to what I did after, but also it helped me to find these new strategies, this new idea, because I compared life and what Milan in Italy was offering at that time to what was offering New York was offering, and so I really wanted to bring something of that experience, some of that experience to Italy, to Milan, and it was very important to do that.
First of all, thank you again. Thank you. If I can dare to find a conclusion, I think we can close on a very, I would say, on a positive note about my original question about what is the future. And I do think that it's something that connects all the experiences of these people, that I could say that in their different fields, they are not scared. They're not scared of trying. I mean, Serena, you have not been scared of doing something when it seems that the world, real or virtual or real world is full of magazines, blah blah. You said, I can say something different. I can say something new. You're not scared by your heritage, which sometimes can be a trap, you know, and you're absolutely able to bring the company to a different level. And you have not been scared by the fact that contemporary art, basically, it does not exist in Italy, so you dare to do something new. So I do think that this probably is a key word for the future, and just dare. Be audacious, don't be scared about, it's apparently it's difficult, it is a difficult moment. We're all scared of what's happening tomorrow, but in reality we shouldn't, because these are living experience that if we try, we can succeed, and we can be successful. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.